All right, today's loss, while it did suck, I am going to prove to you that I'm being positive Pete this season. And no, this isn't like an entirely a post-game video. That is Andrew's job, but this is me just reacting and then kind of stitching the stories together today. What's going on, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of Padres Digest, the show that is stoked to tell you that... Where's it at? Samad Yaylor's coming back, and he is looking fantastico. He hit himself a home run today for the El Paso Chihuahuas in his rehab start. So I'm guessing that his oblique is feeling significantly better. And with guys that have major injuries like we're seeing with Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta and all the pitchers, it's a walk it back, a slow re-entry process, but with guys who have, not to say that an oblique is not a serious injury. He had to miss several weeks, but this is not an injury where it's like, it's not the end of the world. So I think this is kind of, as soon as Samad Yaylor is showing that he's good to go in the minors, he's good to go. What else do you need to see after game one? He's back. He hits a homer. We did this kind of with Cronenworth, where he did 2 days, I think it was, of crushing the ball at AAA, and so they called him up. So let's say one more outing for Samad Yaylor just to make sure there's no lingering residual pain. What do you do with Samad Yaylor then? I ask this with some degree of recency bias, having just watched Austin Hays end today's game with grounding into a double play with Fernando Tatis on deck. And Fernando Tatis, for those of you that have missed it, has entered God mode. And so I am bitter and want to be like, Austin Hays, kick rocks, dude. Get out of here. I'm done with you. Same time, it's worth having a conversation because while Austin Hays is not necessarily performing fantastic, there are several guys and candidates who I think are worthy of discussion for who's going to be replaced by Samad Yaylor. Funny enough, if you go on the Padres website on their depth chart, Samad Yaylor is listed as the third or fourth string of literally every position other than pitcher and catcher. So I think it's then fair to have an open conversation of, between all of the infielders and outfielders, who is the most vulnerable. And I would say it's between Austin Hays, Sun Moon Song, and Jace Bowen. I don't want to touch Rengifo right now. He's on fire, seems to be good. Was somebody who, if you look at the season numbers, is not hitting all that well, but is overall, I think, hitting pretty good. So I am going to say it's between, like I said, Hays, Bowen, and Song. I'm curious who out of that group you think is most vulnerable, given that Samad Yaylor plays every position and is mostly going to be needed to be a starting outfielder on some nights, and then the plug-and-play platoon infielder, or the guy that just comes off the bench and pinch hits, pinch runs, pinch does some sort of like he's a Swiss Army knife. So looking then at the numbers, this is Austin Hays. Like I said, recency bias of today has me going, dude, come on, man. That's a real weak move to end the series with a ground out. Not guaranteed that Tatis was going to come up there and get some heroics, but it's just not the result that you want. So talking about this, he hits lefties well the first couple of days that he shows up here at the Padres, and I think there was some discussion about, well, if Austin Hays can crush those splits, then we need him. It seems to me that maybe that was, I'm not going to say beginner's luck, but maybe that was adrenaline and some feel-good of him showing up, absolutely crushing the ball. That being said, he is not the only one who is having some offensive underperformance issues, so let's have the open discussion then. Sun Moon Song. He's fast. He is good-ish defensively. He is no longer as needed on this roster, given that Jake Cronenworth is back. And so we're not when Cronenworth was out, it was sort of this open-ended, well, what if he got his bell rung in a way that he's just never going to return? We need to have a legitimate, you'll remember at one point this season, we were talking about putting Tatis full-time just at second base because Song was also out with an oblique injury. Song's back. Song has not had necessarily enough playing time this season to just be like, we have the jury one way or another on this guy, in my opinion. But those numbers right there are not fantastic. Song going back down to AAA, to me, is a gut punch because just like we paid $15 million for him in the offseason to come over here and be the KB bro and be good. And him getting beat out by Samad Yaylor late in the season, it's not a fantastic look. I guess only thing that I vote more with Song than anybody else on this list in terms of keeping him is that Song can play the infield on nights where we maybe, like, if Samad Yaylor starts in the outfield, Song can still be a platoon replacement infielder. The last person of my thoughts and discussions on this is Jace Bowen, who is enjoying, I think, a nice storyline of he's cut by the Pirates this offseason, comes here, minor league contract, balls out at AAA, shows up when the Padres just needed some degree, like the Padres were basically dead on the table and needed somebody to stick the paddles, George Clooney style, and bring the team back to life. And not that Jace Bowen single-handedly did that, but he showed up at the same time as Samad Yaylor and was young and was excited and has played well enough that, like, him getting cut back down to AAA is a bummer, but it's also maybe not like the end of his development. This could be something where we see him, maybe he's the guy that ends up getting added in the September expanded roster spot. Like Jace Bowen, I think his best argument is that he is a good pinch runner and can play some really stellar defense. And is somebody who is young, and all the time that we can give, he's not like, he's not 19, but he's in his mid-20s, and is somebody that the more at-bats we give him at the major league level, there is still potential for that to lead to development and growth from him. So between those three guys, I will ask you, who is getting voted off the island to bring my boy Samad back? Or are you just, is there any, raise your hand if you are the one person out there watching this who is against bringing Samad Yaylor home or back up to the Padres? I don't think it exists. So in that vein, let me know what you think. To me, it's going to be Bowen or Hayes. I think it's going to probably be Bowen that goes back down just because he's the young guy, and they're going to hold on to Austin Hayes because he was part of this late season push and signings and moves that AJ Preller did. And, give it 2 weeks and it might change a couple of times in every direction. But I think for the right here, right now, of what the move is going to be, corresponding to reactivate Samad Yaylor within the next 48 hours to the Padres roster is going to be Jace Bowen. Or at least that's my recency bias of having just talked about it for the last 10 minutes. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment, like, subscribe, share, all those other things. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.